Welcome to the demonstration for configuring mailbox archiving, overview, and policies. This demonstration reinforces the concepts covered in Lesson 5 of the Enterprise Vault 10 for Exchange Administration course. In this demonstration, we implement the steps necessary to set up Exchange mailbox archiving. You manually perform these steps using the Enterprise Vault Administration Console, but you can also perform some of these steps using the Enterprise Vault Getting Started wizard. The steps in this demo and demonstration are implementing the Exchange archiving prerequisites, establishing the archive targets, and creating the mailbox and desktop policies. In order to set up Exchange Server 2010 archiving with Enterprise Vault, certain important prerequisites must be implemented. Configuring permissions for the Vault service account, configuring throttling for the Vault service account, granting the send as permission on the system mailbox, and these prerequisites were deliberately not implemented beforehand to ensure that students would have the experience of seeing them being configured. In our example here, we're currently on our Exchange server, Server 1. We are logged in as an administrator account that has access to all the capabilities of the Exchange environment. So to run our scripts that we have that are going to allow us to set those permissions and configure the throttling, we need to open the Exchange Management Shell. So we'll start at the Start button. Then we can come up and open the Exchange Management Shell. And the Exchange Management Shell opens up, gives you some instructions at the top, takes a few seconds to actually connect. And then once it connects, we can type in our command. And our command is set ev exchange permissions.ps1 with the user switch, and then we need to specify the Vault Administration Console account name. And for our environment, the domain name is example, and our Vault service account is ev_service. As the command runs, you'll start to see updates as it's applying different permissions based upon the containers inside of Active Directory for your Exchange environment. So you just kind of see those going along there. Now, the next thing we need to do is once those permissions have been successfully configured, we then need to configure the throttling policy. Exchange 2010 introduced a new concept of throttling policies that tries to prevent one particular user from using up all the connections to Exchange and preventing other users from connecting. Because the Enterprise Vault service account will be connecting on behalf of everyone that is going to be archiving, we need to go in and modify the default throttling policy for a user to have enough of a value to support the Enterprise Vault service account. That command is set ev throttling policy.ps1 with the user switch, once again specifying the Enterprise Vault service account name. Once that once that script runs, it'll show you the service account and show you the name of the throttling policy that it generated for the service account. Now, for this to take effect, we need to go and restart some services on the Exchange server. So we're going to open up the Server Manager by clicking on the Server Manager button here. Once the Server Manager opens up, we have two services we have to restart. One is the Microsoft Exchange Information Store. So I can click on it, select Restart, and see that it is attempting to start up that service. And it did successfully restart. It's back to started again. The second service that I need to restart is the Microsoft Exchange RPC Client Access. So we'll go ahead and restart that by clicking on it and selecting Restart. You can see that that particular service is starting. Now that service has successfully restarted as well. So now I want to go back to the Exchange Management Shell and grant the Send As permission. So I'll go ahead and go back to my Exchange Management Shell. And just to get some of the information that was already on the screen off, I ran the CLS, or Clear Screen command, and then we typed in the actual change commandlet to modify the permission for the system mailbox. And that Exchange commandlet that we're going to run is the add-AD permission. And we're doing this against the Enterprise Vault service account, And in our environment, the identity of the Enterprise Vault Service account is EV-SysMBX1, and we're granting this particular permission to the Enterprise Vault Service account. So our user is EV_service, and we're granting the access rights, and this happens to be that the send as is an extended right, and then we specify our extended rights and which right we're trying to extend, and we type in the send as. For complete details and syntax for all of these commandlets that we're running in the Exchange Management Shell, you can refer to the Enterprise Vault Help System or the Installing and Configuring Guide. So once we run the add AD permission commandlet, it'll come back and tell you that the identity was the system mailbox, and it granted it to user EV service. Now we can go ahead and close the Exchange Management Shell as we're done with it. We can minimize our server manager, and we're done working on the Exchange server. So what we need to do now is switch over to our other virtual machine, which is the Enterprise Vault server. So now I've switched over to my other machine, the Enterprise Vault server, and I have the Vault Administration Console open. But when I logged in, or was originally logged in from the end of the last demonstration, I was logged in as Parveen Khan, PKhan. PKhan, in a previous demonstration, we had given the storage administrator role using our roles-based administration. So we were able to, in the previous demonstration, use PKhan's account to set up storage. However, in this particular demonstration, we're going to be going through and creating targets and setting up policies. A storage administrator does not have all the permissions they need, so we need to log on with someone who has those permissions. So we're going to go ahead and close our Vault Administration Console here. Once again, we don't have to save the changes. And we need to log PKhan off. So I'll click my Start button and do my Log Off button. Once I've logged off, I've got to press my Control-Alt-Delete. And again, since this is a virtual machine environment, I'm going to send it from the virtual machine environment. So I send a Control-Alt-Delete. And I need to switch users because I no longer want to be PKhan. I select other users. And then I type in the name of the account that I wish to log in as, which is going to be the example in Kapoor. Now, in a previous demonstration, we added the in Kapoor account, and needed Kapoor, to the Power Administrator role. So the Power Administrator role has the necessary permissions that we need to be able to go through and set up our targets and create our initial mailbox and desktop policies. So I go ahead and type in Kapoor's password. Go ahead and click my login button, and the in Kapoor desktop comes up. Now, in Kapoor hasn't used the Enterprise Vault Administration Console before, so we're going to go ahead and just create a shortcut on the desktop for the Enterprise Vault Administration Console. Then we can click on that shortcut and open up the Vault Administration Console. The first thing that we want to do is we need to create a domain target in the Exchange environment. So I'll expand my directory, and then I can expand my site. And then I've got under my targets my Exchange environment. So in order to create the domain target, I click on my Exchange environment, right click. I'm going to select New and then Domain. Now, the new domain wizard opens up. I specify the name of the domain containing the Exchange servers that I want to include in this particular site. So in that case here, that was server 1, and it was in the example.com domain. So here I type in the example.com. Now, Symantec recommends that you not specify a specific global catalog server to connect to. We have this option here to allow you to, if you were troubleshooting, be able to specify a global catalog to connect to. But typically we want to have that extra reliability of having multiple global catalogs available, so that if one does go down, the Enterprise Vault environment will still be able to find one. So we will leave that unchecked. Then we can go ahead and click OK, and you can see that we now have our example.com domain. So our next action is to create a Exchange server target within our domain. So we'll expand our example.com. We will then right-click on our Exchange server and select New Exchange Server. Starts the new Exchange Server wizard, which says that you'll be able to not only add the new Exchange server target, but if you wish, this wizard can in fact create the mailbox archiving task, journaling task, public folder task, and provisioning task. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And we need to specify the Exchange server that we wish to archive items, and we said that that was server 1. Now note here that under the Create task for this Exchange server, I have the option of selecting to create an Exchange mailbox task, the Exchange public folder task, the Exchange journaling task. But notice here that the Exchange provisioning task isn't given to us as an option. There is a requirement, as we talked about in the lesson, to have one Exchange provisioning task per domain. And because we haven't previously created an Exchange provisioning task, when you create the first Exchange mailbox task, the system is designed to automatically create a provisioning task for this domain. Now, for the public folder task and the journaling task, we're not going to create them at this particular point in time. In later demonstrations, we will come back and create those tasks. So I go ahead and click Next. We have to specify the system mailbox on the Exchange server that we're going to use for the task, the mailbox archiving task. So we can click our Browse button, and then we need to find our EV System Mailbox 1 account. So I click my scroll bar, select the EV System MBX1 account. Then I can click OK. Then I can click Next. And I get the summary for creating the new Exchange server target in my example.com domain target. So I go ahead and click Finish, and it comes back and tells me that the Exchange server was successfully added, and it created 2 tasks, the Exchange mailbox archiving task for server 1 and the Exchange provisioning task for example.com. So we'll go ahead and click our Close button here, and I can in fact see that under the targets of Exchange and example.com and Exchange server, server 1 is now listed there. The next thing that we want to do is go look at those tasks that it said that it created for us. So the tasks are under our Enterprise Vault servers, so we can expand our Enterprise Vault servers. We then have our one EV server that's currently in our Enterprise Vault environment. So I can go ahead and expand that. And then if I come down and click on my tasks, I can see that it has in fact created the Exchange mailbox archiving task for server 1 and the Exchange provisioning task for our domain, example.com. Now we're ready to go and create the mailbox policies that we wish to use in our environment. So to create those mailbox policies, we'll come up and expand our policies. And then these are Exchange mailbox policies, so we'll expand Exchange. We'll come in and right-click on the mailbox option, say that we wish to create a new policy, and that launches the new Exchange mailbox policy wizard. We're going to change the name of this particular mailbox policy to Standard Mailbox Policy. And our description is going to be that this is going to be for most of our users in our environment will probably be getting this mailbox policy. So we can go ahead and click OK. Now for mailbox policies, it doesn't give us any configuration options as part of running the new mailbox policy wizard. You have to do that through the properties page. So I come up and I right click on my standard mailbox policy, select the properties. And the first property that we're going to configure is coming under the Archiving Actions tab. So I click on my Archiving Actions tab. And the first thing that I wish to do is to remove the overall lock. By removing the overall lock, there's 4 different locks that I'm releasing for changing. And these 4 different locks are going to control whether or not the users at their level will be able to change those settings. And for our particular installation, we've decided to give our users that capability. So we will then come up and remove the lock for the delete original item after archiving. We can then delete the lock for the create shortcut to archived items after archiving. We're going to add in the option to automatically archive unread items. And we're going to then remove the lock for that function. The next configuration that we want to make is on the archiving rules for the mailbox policy. And for the archiving rules, we're going to start off with a based on age archiving strategy. But this is the 4th lock that overall lock set. So we're going to go ahead and clear that lock. And then we're going to come down and set the duration for our age-based archiving. Now, typically in a production environment, you would select some amount of time to give your end users access to items in their mailboxes before you archive them. However, for the examples of this demonstration, we want to make sure that when we run the archiving task, that it will actually delete everything. So we're going to change this to 0 days. But again, this would not be an optimum setting that you would wish to set in a production environment. So I click on my option for setting the period, and I select days. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down to our override settings, and we're going to remove the override for never archive items younger than. Now again, based upon your archiving strategy, it might be a good idea, again, to give your users a certain period of time before they are actually archived. So therefore, by removing this, then I will not delete those younger items. So next thing that we want to do, though, is override the settings for size so that we will start archiving the larger items first. So we place a check mark there by clicking. But we want it to be much smaller than the 10 kilobytes that are there. So we're going to change it to 1,024 kilobytes. The next setting that we wish to configure for our standard mailbox policy is the shortcut content. So I come up and click on my shortcut content tab. And what I want to do is I want to set the content of the shortcut body. And we have decided for most mail users, we're not going to have anything in the shortcut body. So we will select none. Then we can go ahead, and if that's all the settings that we're interested in configuring at this time for this mailbox policy, we'll go ahead and click OK and save those settings. Now the next issue that comes up is that if you wish to create additional mailbox policies, one easiest way to do that is to create this more generic policy that applies to a larger group, copy those settings, and then add the additional settings that you wish to apply to a more restrictive group. So for our mailbox policy here, we'll copy the mailbox policy. I'll select copy policy. We'll give it the new name, and our new name is going to be priority mailbox policy. And our description is going to be for our high priority users. So I go ahead and click OK. And again, it just creates the policy, doesn't make any of the setting changes. So I can go ahead and right click on that and then select the properties. Once the properties dialog box opens up for our priority users, we want to make sure that the indexing is set to full. So we'll go to our indexing option, and we'll see that for the mailbox policies that by default, it is set to full as the default setting. So it was already set to that value. We didn't have to change that, and we're fine with the 128 character preview length, and we're not interested in creating previews of the attachments. However, what we are going to change for our high priority users are their shortcut content. So we'll click on the shortcut content tab, and for them, we want them to see the full message body in the shortcut. So we'll open up our option here, and again, it was changed to none because that was what was copied from the standard mailbox policy. We'll go ahead and click our use message body option here, and then we can go ahead and click OK, because that's the only other setting that we wish to change. And now we want to create a desktop policy. So we'll come over under our policies and under Exchange and select the desktop. Then we can go ahead and right click and open up the new policy option. So I click on new And then I click on Policy. Just like for the mailbox policy, we're going to specify a name, and our name is going to be for our laptop users. And then we would specify our description and click OK. And you can see that this is going to be the desktop policy for the laptop users. Now at this particular time, that's all we're going to do for the desktop policy. We will come back in a later demonstration and actually configure some of the settings for the desktop. So that brings us to the end of this demonstration.